Good afternoon, welcome back to another Coastie Explores. This is part 2 of Hong Kong Through Time. Just got off the famous Star Ferry, and our first port of call, our first clock tower, is undoubtedly the most iconic clock tower here in Hong Kong, and it is this one. It's the Kowloon to Canton Clocktower. Now, there used to be a giant station right behind this clock tower back in the day, but that was knocked down, and now only this clock tower is remaining, but it can be seen from all over the harbour. Now, I've just found out that my educational assistant who works with me, her husband has the keys to that door over there, but unfortunately not even he can open it for me. It's like Fort Knox trying to get in there. The original bell can be found at the bottom of the stairs inside that bell tower. Let's check out the tower over time. Let's take a trip down memory lane. Now, those who regularly watch my videos would have noticed that we were here about a month ago for the Brisbane video, and there was a Mr. Whippy here. It looks as though he's had to move one little street over, and now he's got no customers at all. What a difference one little street makes in Hong Kong. 1 week, chock-a-blocked, the next week, no customers. Get down here to TST, help him out, buy an ice cream. Okay, our next clock, or time-making device, should I say, is right here at Heritage 1881. Right outside the old former fire station here. Not a lot of people know that. They walk straight past this old red brick building. This was the terminus fire station for when the train station was built and then became, I believe, TST fire station. But right here in front of the magnificent former Marine Police headquarters here on Salisbury Road. Let's go and find this time ball tower. And here we are, we're back at the Time Ball Tower. We were here for the Brisbane episode, so I'm not going to go into too much depth. If you want to check it out, check the link below, because we looked at Time Ball Towers in Sydney and Brisbane and here. But basically, each day at 12 o'clock, the observatory would send a signal down to the Marine Police headquarters here, and the time ball would be raised just before 1 o'clock, and then at 1 o'clock each day, it would drop down, telling all the ships out there in the harbour, would have had wonderful views of the harbour at the time, exactly what time it was, and they would set their marine chronometers to 1 o'clock, which allowed them to travel around the globe safely. Now, this operated from 1885 to 1907. Then it changed to Signal Hill, which is about 300 metres that way. So let's go and have a quick look at the Time Ball Tower on Signal Hill. Let's go. So. Now, right outside the former Marine Police headquarters, we've got this 6-pound Hotchkiss gun. Now, it was this type of gun that was outside the Fire in the Noonday gun back in the day, but apparently it was too loud, so they switched it in for a 3-pound gun. That original Noonday gun is now in the Marine Police headquarters out on the eastern side of Hong Kong now, and this one's come here. And the Noonday gun is a nice and quiet 3-pound gun, so the locals, it's not hurting their ears. Right, let's continue our journey to Signal Hill. The things I do for this YouTube channel, it's 34 degrees, walking uphill. This is Signal Hill. It used to be called Blackhead Point, one of two small hills right at the bottom of the Kowloon Peninsula here. And yeah, in 1907, the Time Ball Tower moved from Marine Police Headquarters to here on Signal Hill, again with weather poles to show the different weathers for the ships out at sea. Right, let's see if we can find this tower. The tower here would have had commanding views of both the eastern channel here that we can see there and the western channel, of course now hidden by K11 Museum and various different hotels and shopping centres. Right, it's all downhill from here, as they say. Let's head down. Let's see another old building that's not here anymore, but let's see where it stood. On Nathan Road, I believe. Let's go. I just love this photo taken probably in the 1960s here with the Daimler double-decker buses, and in the middle is a Guy Motors single-decker, and that was actually built in my hometown of Wolverhampton. To think it's come all the way from my hometown to Hong Kong. And right here in the heart of TST is where our next clock tower would have stood. Right over there on the corner of Cameron Road stood the old phone building, built in 1949. It was at the time the second biggest skyscraper in Hong Kong and the tallest skyscraper on this side of the harbour. Well, we're here at the Hong Kong Observatory, but unfortunately you can't go in because it is a government building. I think there are open days that you can have a look around, so check out for those. It's just been raining, which is perfect for the Hong Kong Observatory because it's been recording, predicting the weather since 1883, but it's also been in charge of time here in Hong Kong. So let's take a look at the buildings and then also think about time zones in Hong Kong and how this building monitored the time in those early days. Let's go. The Hong Kong Observatory was built in 1883. From the 1880s onwards, Hong Kong local time was determined by astronomical observations at the observatory using a 6-inch equatorial mount and a 3-inch transit circle. That was until 1904 when Greenwich Mean Time was adopted as the basis for Hong Kong time. The time was set at 8 hours in advance of Greenwich Mean Time. At one stage they used daylight savings, but that stopped in 1979. With China being so vast and with no fast way of travelling around the country, until the 20th century, official time standard for the whole of China was still the apparent solar time of Beijing. At the turn of the 20th century, after the opening up of treaty ports along the east coast following the Opium War, coastal time was proposed, so Shanghai and some other ports had a set time. 5 time zones in China were introduced from 1918 to 1949 until they switched back to one time zone, the same time as Beijing, which is plus UTC 8 hours. A few times daylight savings have been adopted over the years, but that no longer happens. You may be thinking that the provinces out west, such as Xinjiang, must struggle with keeping Beijing time. Well, I've been there on a trip, and people tend to change their daily timetables to reflect the sun, so shops may open from 10 till 7 instead of from 8 till 5. And here it is, King George V School here on Kowloon side. Let's find out more about this iconic school. ESF King George V was built in 1937. The clock adorns the main Peel block of the school, which was named after the governor at the time, Sir William Peel. During World War II, the school was used as a refugee camp, then a British hospital, before taken over by the Japanese. The clock still functions today with a simple electrical mechanism inside. When it was built, it was a solitary building on a rocky hill. It now, however, is just yet another building in the forest of bricks and mortar that is Ho Man Tin. Now this area of Kowloon side is called Ho Man Tin, but there's lots of Scottish street names around here. We've got Dunbar Street, we've got Gillane Road, we've got Tweed Road, Perth Street, so lots of Scottish names. And right here on, what are we on, Dunbar Road, we've got an old British era post box. Now, there are lots of British era post boxes still in service here in Hong Kong. This one here is Queen Elizabeth II, so it's a post 1952 box, but we have lots from before Queen Elizabeth. We've got some George V, George VI, and there are some Queen Victoria ones in museums and in the post office here in Hong Kong. So do check them out, and check out my 3-part series on the history of the Hong Kong post boxes here. This very busy street here, another Scottish name is Argyle Street, and right opposite here is the outpatients of the Kowloon Hospital. This was built in 1925 for the burgeoning population that was happening here in Kowloon. It was used as a military hospital for the Japanese from 1941 to 1945, but it's still a hospital here and one of the biggest here in Hong Kong. Right, we need to head further down Argyle Street to see the next iconic clock tower. Let's go. And here it is. It's the iconic CLP Tower, the old China Light and Power building. Here on Argyle Street, you can see built in 1940 in the late Art Deco design. We've got a marvellous Art Deco style clock on top. I've noticed this set of stairs here. You get all these all over Hong Kong, really steep stairs. So this is the side of the building. Let's go up and see if we can take a look at the clock tower from the back. Now there is a reason why you go exploring and go upstairs that you shouldn't do when it's really this hot. Look at what we've found here. This looks as though it's an old peak tram carriage. I don't know, I haven't done any research on it, so if you do know what this is and what it's doing stuck behind the CLP building, write it in the comments below. Now who'd have thought it? It's actually a museum now, so let's go in and take a look inside the building. go. We didn't need to film it from outside because right outside the cafeteria here at the CLP building is the 5th generation peak tram. This was used from 1989 until recently. What it's doing here, I don't know, but it's a nice thing to be on display here in Kowloon. Right, we've got time for one more on Kowloon side, and that's up in Sham Shui Po, and that's got a bakery theme. Interesting. Let's go. Okay, for the final clock tower on Kowloon side, we have come to Sham Shui Po, which is one of the most densely populated areas of Hong Kong. This is all built on reclaimed land from the 1920s, and the famous golden arcade here for all your computer gaming needs. It's a great little place. We'll go in there when we do a full tour of Sham Shui Po. But we're going to head and try and find this famous clock tower in this area I've never been to. But before we do that, this area used to be full of warehouses at one point, especially further up to Lai Chi Kok and Chung Shou Wan. And within those warehouses and in these old buildings here, we used to have little cottage industries, and one of those used to be many watchmakers. So let's find out a little bit about the watchmaking industry of Hong Kong. Over to you, Luke.
This area of Hong Kong, and many like it from the late 1950s, became a hotspot for watch manufacturers, starting with the making of leather straps, then watch cases, before the full assembling of watches for companies all around the world. In the 1970s, electronic and digital watches became a big part of Hong Kong business, and there were thought to be over 1,000 watchmaking factories. However, in the 1980s there was a shift to having the watches built and assembled in the mainland before being shipped back across to Hong Kong. By 1992, Hong Kong watches accounted for 70% of the world's supply, and the industry became one of the 4 major export contributors in Hong Kong.
And there it is, how exciting, first time here. That is the Garden Bakery building. Now, that company was formed in 1926, but it bought this plot of land here in Sham Shui Po on Castle Peak Road in the 1950s, and then this building opened in 1959. Now, if you've ever been to Hong Kong, you may well have tried their famous biscuits and baking goods. They are ubiquitous here in all the shops in Hong Kong. So next time you are in Hong Kong, take a look at the building here, but get yourself to any shop and buy some garden biscuits. Right, well, I think it's time to head back onto Hong Kong Island to see a few last clocks at night time to finish off our Around Hong Kong Through Time episode. So let's head back into town and bring darkness upon the city. And we've made it to Wan Chai, and this building here, this is Central Plaza, and at the top of the building there is a spire with what looks like 4 lights on top, and every 15 minutes the colors of those lights change, so everyone in Central knows exactly what time it is because of the colors of the spire, although nobody here knows about it, so actually nobody looks at it. But there we go, that tells the time. One more. So on my way home, I'm gonna get the ferry home, after a very long hot day of filming, and we're going to see one more as we depart from the harbour. So let's head to Central Ferry Piers for the final one of the day. And that was IFC Tower, and that right across there is ICC. Probably not going to play ball right now, but normally it tells the time on top. But we've got National Day, we've got the pandas, some special pandas arriving in Hong Kong, so there's lots of messages on there, messages of embrace Hong Kong, peace and love Hong Kong. So there we go. So hopefully you've enjoyed taking a trip around Hong Kong in this two-part series of time in Hong Kong. I will show that this tower normally does show the time on top. In the modern day, we've taken a journey from ancient Chinese clocks to British era clock towers to the modern ones that we see today. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Coasty Explorers, and we'll catch you on the next time here in Hong Kong, China. Bye for now.